Now that we know that our file is exported as OBJ in the right dimensions and we have ZBrush opened, let's try to make some changes to our model. So first we need to do is to import file to a ZBrush, and if your ZBrush looks like this, that's great. Maybe sometimes your ZBrush can have lightbox open, so you can turn off the lightbox if you never navigated in ZBrush. This is how you work. And there is a draw option. This is by default draw option is on, so what you do is you click import on your right corner and select your OBJ file. This is my OBJ file, I already found it. So once I have it selected, it's here under the tools. We can see how it looks like. So this is our screen, and what we need to do is we're just gonna click and draw one of these rings. We click and draw, and that's it. We brought it to a scene. Now we have this, we click edit, and we can click outside of a ring and draw, and we're gonna rotate around it, and with option key and click we can actually pan around. So now that we have our ring brought to our scene, let's see how we can do some first preparation of this model for adding some more geometry and details to it. So now let's see how we can quickly manipulate from this to ZBrush. So first, before we go, we're gonna check some distances, because I always like to check the distances just to make sure that everything is printable and that we can work with this and really produce jewelry for our needs. So I picked a dot at which I want to measure, and I'm gonna just check this size. So I hold shift and it says this thickness is 1.1 millimeter, and that is okay. That is okay. And this distance I'm gonna just approximately check. Okay, 2.3. That is okay. So now let's prepare the model for ZBrush. We just do that by exporting OBJ model. So we're gonna go export. I got a desktop and say file for ZBrush lesson 1. And export OBJ. We say OK, and the file is ready. Now we're gonna go to our ZBrush, and this is where magic happens. Now let's see how we can do some basic filleting of these edges so we don't have such a sharp edges on our model before we go and import this model in ZBrush. And in ZBrush we can do some more detailed editing. We can of course smooth these edges in ZBrush too, but I think it's easier to do it in Rhino. If you did everything well and if these dimensions are proper, function is going to work correctly. So let's say we type fillet the edge, radius something around 0.2, we click on this edge and this edge and these two edges and this edge as well. As you can see, I don't select this edge because I already did the function on this edge, so I know it works properly. You can see how it looks like on this edge with 0.2 radius. So I say done, done, and I should get a very decent result. Let's check it out in a second. If the angles are okay of all the surfaces, it should, with 0.2 setting, something like this, it should give you the correct result without break. If you select the bigger setting, sometimes the model can break, and what you do there, you just go back and try to input a lower value or try to reshape your object. But that is for now. Once that we have our object imported and that we know how to move around in ZBrush by pressing Command and double click and zoom in and zoom out, I do it with my two fingers and Command on my trackpad and just clicking around and rotating. Now what I want to do is I want to actually change the mesh. If I do a right click and activate the polyframe mesh, we can see that we have a lot of triangles, and that's not very good for modeling and adding details. So let's first make this polymesh 3D, and once we made it polymesh 3D, we're going to go to ZRemesher and click ZRemesher. And with the default mode of a ZRemesher, we're going to get something like this, which if we turn, we see how it looks like. We still have a lot of polygons, just these polygons are square, and they're way better if we want to model with them. So now what we do is we go to divide. There's an option called divide. We click divide. We got, you see, two subdivisions. And let's delete the lower so we can see what we got. So we got something like this, which if we zoom out already to possibly size of how it can look like on a human's hand, we're gonna see that that's still pretty okay. Let's zoom in. Go to Subtool menu, click it, and this is our subtool. So if we put our cursor here, we're going to see that we have 61,000 points. If we click right click and poly and draw on top of it, we start to get some basic shape. Well, just for the purpose of demonstration and fun, let's maybe make even more. And subdivide once again and delete lower. So now we have very nice and dense mesh, and very good resolution. Once we have that, we go to subtool and check, and we see that we're 245,000 polygons. So that's quite okay for 3D printing and doing any details. So that's how we prepare the file to be able to draw on it, and to be able to add more details, and also to make it 3D printable. In the next tutorial, we're gonna see how to use brushes to add specific textures. So stay in touch.
Hello everybody and welcome to my Ultimate Jewelry 3D Modeling Complete Design workflow. This is going to be first of this kind of a series online, and in this series I'm going to teach a variety of software covering the basic shapes and modeling techniques. In Rhino we're going to learn how to make, in this case, rings, but also with the tools that I'm going to teach, you'll be able to make any other type of jewelry. After some Rhino introduction and modeling, I'm going to teach as well as ZBrush. ZBrush is a very powerful tool, and it gives us freedom that we can import our basic shape models, and upon importing them, we can do a very easy changes to our model, to the texture, and to the general shape, which can be very beneficial if you want to produce jewelry in 2020. A jewelry that can be 3D printable and a jewelry that can be wearable. So after ZBrush and some textures and details, I'm going to teach the basics about Keyshot and how we can make some beautiful renderings, as well as how to work with animation presets that come with the Keyshot, so you can do your own as well presentation. So I really welcome you all to coming to this first of this kind of a tutorial. This is going to be a very complete series, after which you'll be able to produce professional pieces of jewelry that will be 3D printable, and as well your presentation can be up to very high professional level. The aim of this tutorial is to kind of step away from generic and just general CAD jewelry, which can be recognized on the online very easily, and to make more something that looks like done by hand or crafted by hand, which can give you more value to your design products and to your jewelry, and as well can improve the quality of your designs. So thank you very much for coming, and yes, see you in the lesson number 1, which will cover the basics of Rhino for jewelry design.
All you need to do is select your object and press this button which says Zoom Extends. It's gonna fix your object back to center. Now that you have this, what you can do is you can edit your model more further by using a cage edit command. So I'm gonna type cage edit and just navigate to find it. Just type cage and you find it. And select captive objects. So I'm gonna select the objects that I need and I say done. And for the control object, I want a bounding box around this ring with the dots. So I tap the bounding box and I just go and click done. I don't need any more details about it, and he's gonna give me 4 points in every direction, as you can see, X, Y, and Z, and I'm fine with that, and I just say done. So once I have that, I can play further with these dots. By clicking and drawing a box, I select the dots I need, and I can manipulate them with my gimbal on or off. If you select the dots and you for some reason don't see your gimbal like this, then all you need to do is click the gimbal. You see, if I turn it off, you don't see it. So now I can play with my shape, and I can get to something like this, very simple. This is the power of a cage edit, and many different 3D softwares have something very similar. So maybe you got used if you used other 3D software, or if you didn't, it's still very intuitive to use. So you select the points you need, and you play in the direction that's not going to influence your shape of your ring. So if you go to the front viewport, you still see that my ring is perfectly round because I never did any motion in this direction. This will make the ring not very wearable. So keep in mind, also if you select points like this, if you go in any of these directions, will change the overall shape of an inner ring, and your ring is not going to be according to the size for your customer who's going to wear it. So that's all you need to know about your cage ring settings. Now in the next tutorial we're gonna look about how we can do rings that have some different modulations and changes. So now that we know how to make a basic shape with our profile curve, let's try to use some Boolean function to change that. Before using our Boolean function, we're going to check some distance by typing distance. So I go to distance, I press enter, I click on this point, I make sure that that's the point that I clicked, and I click on the point on top just to check the distance. So I click on these 2 points and I get the distance is 1.9 millimeter. We can also check that by going into our viewport, and because we checked in the beginning of when we made the new file with Rhino, we made it with the millimeters in mind. So that's why 1 square here is 1 millimeter. So that's what we can approximately, when we see this, we know that is around 2 millimeters. And that's okay when making a ring. You can make the thickness of around 1.2 millimeters to 2 millimeters. Now that we know that, and that's going to make a comfortable ring, let's add some geometry over here by doing a copy function, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. So we copied this. Now we have 2 polysurfaces, because when we click, it gives us options of 2. So once we click one polysurface, let's just change its shape a little bit and make it a slightly bigger. Hold Shift, click on one of these, hold Shift, and make something like that. Okay, we go inside a little bit, just to see how much our circle is interfering inside, because we want to cut this shape out of this. So we see that then we're left with something which is approximately not too big, so we want to make it a little bit bigger. We want to go around 0.6 centimeters inside. And now that we have that, we just see, I think it's too thin. I'm gonna make it a little bit wider like that. And now we go to Boolean function. So you type Boolean, and just type BO and gives you many different options. And you want to take Boolean difference. So press enter, and on the Boolean difference, it asks you for your objects. You click the first object, you say done, and then you select the other object, you say done, and you see the object number 2 is going to be subtracted from the object number 1, and that's what you get with your Boolean function. So this is another way how you can model very simply without actually drawing a curve if you need to do some just simple changes. So for example, if you want to add something here, you can make a sphere. So you type sphere, you click, you draw a sphere. So for example, you want this sphere to subtract this sphere from our base ring shape. You can also repeat the function the same way. So you go to Boolean difference or type Boolean, and it gives you the difference. Select the first object, say done, select another object, done, and this is how you can make some simple shapes. So now we know how to use the basic function of sweep one rail, which you can also find by typing sweep, and there's sweep one. So we click and we take a cross section and we make a ring. But what if we want to make something more interesting? Let's see how to do it by changing our cross section. So very simple. If I want to just add a shape inside of it, I can click Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, so I copy. I have 2 pieces now, like this, you can see. And the second one, I'm going to make a slightly smaller by like this, and bring it somewhere around here. Why I bring it here is to keep at least 1 point something millimeters over there, and maybe I maybe scale also this one a little bit. How if I want to just scale it in this direction, I'm gonna use the scale, and there is scale 1D option. You have 3D and 2D, so depending what you want. I want 1D for now, so I click this is the point from where I want to scale, and this is the point toward which I want to scale, and I'm gonna make something like this. Why? Because I already got used to my distances, and if you type distance in your editor, you can check now distance, and you can see that this is 0.7, so I know that that's tolerable for printing, and this is 2.2, which I know it's wearable in the case of ring. So also let's check this distance. It should be somewhere around 6, yes, 6 millimeters. Okay, so now that I have these two curves on this plane, they're all both on one plane overlapping, what I can do is I can trim. So how to do trimming? It's very simple. You have an icon here that says trim, or you can just type trim and press enter. Select cutting objects. So these are cutting objects. You can select them all and you say done, and select objects to trim, and you just click on the lines which you don't want, and it just removes all these other lines, and you say done. So now what we're left with is two curves which we can hold shift or just select both of them, whatever method you like, but I like to hold shift and click, and then go here and click join, or just type join. I recommend you remember to type your commands, because that way you can be very fast working in Rhino. So we go join, and two curves are joined into one closed curve. That's exactly what we want. Now we can take this shape, newly created shape, surface, and say sweep one rail, which we just learned in the previous tutorial. We select the rail, and we select the cross curves. We say done. This doesn't matter right now. We say done. We see how it looks like. We can click close shape, and you can play with this, which I generally don't use because it just gives me the shape that I need. So once I get sweep, we have something like this. And now with this shape we can play around. We also know that all the dimensions are according to the ring size that we need and to be wearable. If you ever want to change dimensions again, you go to your front viewport or your right viewport, or which is the best way, and then type distance, click to the point you need, hold shift, and then measure the distance. And it says, you see, in our case it's 2.2. Let's see, did we preserve the radius of our base ring? You see, diameter is 90 millimeters. That's exactly what we need. So we know that this ring will be comfortable for wearing. In the next tutorial, we're going to see how to add more details and change shape in a different way. Hello everybody, and welcome back to our tutorial about modeling with jewelry in 3D, which in this case we use Rhino software, which is very good for making the basic shapes and very precise shapes for our rings. So we created two profile types, this profile type and this profile type. This is like a flat type and one with a little bit of changes. And these are some very popular profiles or cross-section curves in the industry. So let me show you a very simple way how we can alternate our shapes, cross-section curves, and make these profiles. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our right viewport, where we can clearly see our profile. So this is our basic profile, and just copy it by holding Option key on your MacBook, and just copy it holding Shift. Okay. Now I want to just change the shape of my profile. We're going to use for this purpose, we're going to use this curve, because this curve gives me option to just click and draw. So I can get a very soft type of curve, for example, like this. There are other curves which give you just straight lines, and they're very clear to understand and to implement. So you can just use the curves that you want. They're very self-explanatory. So I'm just going to cover this one in the beginning. Also keep in mind, in this I'm not going to use right now the grid snap, because if grid snap is on, all the points are going to go to the points of a grid. So I won't be able to draw really precisely on my existing shape. So I'm going to turn off the grid snap, turn on the planner because I want to draw in one plane. And here you see you have type of a snapping that you want. So I want to produce a snapping, and it says end, near, point, midpoint, and intersection, which is good because this is the end, this is the near, there is a midpoint, and it tells me where it is. So I can easily snap to those points and draw. This is very important because after we join the curve, everything needs to be in the same plane and everything needs to be joined. So let's start with our curve. So we say click here, and I'm going to click here again to get some smoothness, and I'm going to make this. Okay. So now I have a curve that goes till here and a curve that goes till here. What I can do is I can trim these two curves right now. So trim this, but let me see, did I do a good job? This goes here and this goes here. So I did a pretty good job in this point. Let's go again here, here, and here. So I did a good job here too. Okay, so now we can just mirror this. Type mirror. It says mirror. Good. Enter. And if we want to mirror this from the middle of this point, because we have a midpoint snap on, I'm just going to click to a midpoint, and it's instantly going to give me that point. And if I hold Shift and go up, I can mirror it in this direction. And now I'm going to perform the same operation here with trim. So I go to trim, trim that point, done. And let's see what I got. Very clean. It's very important that this doesn't overlap. Sometimes this point might go over here, and then you need to fix that. This way I click, I know that both points are on the same edge, and just like in the previous side, there's no mistake. So I can join this into one object right now, and there wouldn't be any problem. Oh, I did that by mistake. I don't need my photos on. I can turn that off. Okay. And now we see that we have a one curve added to our section. Let's do another very small changes. For example, something like this. Can we do that? Just for the demonstration purposes. So I have this, and I'm gonna hold it and trim again the parts that I don't need. Done. And we're gonna type join. Not necessarily is this the best design ever, but I'm just for the demonstration of purposes. Now let's try to sweep this profile. How are we gonna do that? Also, we go to the right mode. And first we need to bring the middle of this curve to this point here to snap. So we're gonna do that by using the move tool, which is here. And it says select the object to move. So this is our object that we move. So we click and select done. Then select the point from which we want to move, and we go to the midpoint of this plane. So midpoint, click, and we just click here when it says near, so it snaps to that point. Very good. Now, if we go to our perspective mode and we try to sweep this one rail, we click the rail and we say select cross-section curves. This is our cross-section curves or profile, and we say done, done, sweep, and this is what we get. And we go to render mode just to get the feeling of the different shapes and how you can create them. Hello everybody and welcome to lesson 1 of ring design in Rhino. So in this lesson we're going to cover some basic ring design using the surface sweep one rail function. This is a function that's going to use the base ring size, and we're going to use some cross-section, cross-cut, which we're going to use to sweep around the rail of a base ring. So let's start with some first basic dimensions. In order to create the basic ring shape, we're going to go to Circle tool, and Circle starts from a radius. So that's the first tool for us. And the center of our circle should be in the 0 position, which is in the middle. We can use the grid snap by turning it on or off, and just click in the middle position, or we can type the center of our circle point 0, and that is a better workflow to learn, to just type 0. And the diameter for our circle should be something around 19 millimeters. And there you go. We have a circle of 19 millimeters. So let's do the cross section for this circle. Pay attention that every one of these square, because I work in a millimeter mode, as you can see, is 1 millimeter. So in order to make a band, let's try something that would be like 6, maybe 5. Let's make something 6 millimeters wide. Turn off the grid snap, and now we can freely move our object. But what if, for example, we have a line like this that's not parallel to anything or symmetrical, and we want to move the middle point to the point of this line? We can do that by using the Move tool. So Move tool is right here under the toolbar. It looks also like moving. So select object that you want to move. I select my line, I press enter, and I go to the middle. It just instantaneously snaps to the middle. So you click middle, and you click near, and this way we can attach the line to that point. And if you go to your perspective mode also as well and rotate, you'll see perfectly clear that it just snapped to the lower part of our circle. Once we have that covered, we can keep on drawing. So for the thickness of our ring, in order to be produced, we're gonna go for something at least like 1.8 millimeters to make everything okay. So keep in mind that one square length is 1 millimeter, so this should be 1.5, and I'm gonna add a little bit more here. So I'm gonna hold shift and draw something like this, and also hold shift. And what if I want to just stop to the point where this point goes? Well, there is an easy way we can do that. First, while this point is still free, we just go and click Smart Track. Once we have a Smart Track on, we hold Shift, and without holding Shift, first we go to our dot, which is the end of this line, and it says the end. And now when we go down, we're going to see that it follows a white line that goes straight from that dot. So we can hold Shift and so we can fix it horizontally, and it snapped to the same length of where that last dot was. And now I can finish my shape by clicking to the last dot. Also it snaps. And that's it. In order to finish drawing, I just click Done. And now I have two lines from my cross section. It's important that my cross section is outside of this line, so that it snaps perfectly here. That way I don't bring my cross section inside of a circle. In this way I would lose the precision in size of a ring shape that I needed. So once I have these two objects, I mean these two lines, I want to connect them in one line, in one curve, in order to be able to perform the sweep function properly. So how I do that is I just go and select these two and click the join function, or type join. I press enter, and it says the curves joined into one closed curve. Now I can use this to perform the sweep function. Very simple. We go to Surface, Sweep One Rail. We click on a circle, and it says select cross-section curves. These are cross-section curves. And say done. And sweep. And this is our first ring, and this is a very basic shape. So in lesson number 2, we're gonna see how we can improve this shape of our ring. But before we go to lesson number 2, let's just repeat the function we did again. So we have a line that's parallel and that touches this point. And we go to Surface, Sweep One Rail. It says select the rail, so we select our rail. This is our rail. Select cross-section curves. These are cross-section curves. So we select, we say done. We can adjust the point by clicking on it and moving it somewhere. This is only important if you have more cross-section curves. If you don't have more cross-section curves, I think this doesn't influence your function that much. And then you say done, and this is what you get. And if it's not finished, you can click closed sweep, and it's definitely going to finish it. So we say sweep now, and we got our first ring. So that's it for the first tutorial. In the second tutorial, we're going to see how we can make more shapes onto this and actually design a little bit more. This is just the basic tutorial of how to make a first shape in Rhino. Thank you for following, and see you in the next session.